Uh, Thank you for being here. Earlier this week, I was in Linden, and whilst there, I met with several groups of people. Representing various interests. And in the private discussions I had with those individuals from the different groups, they told me about the continuing racist propaganda being spread by the APNU AFC leadership in the region. It seems as though in Region 10, we cannot get past, or the leadership there cannot get past the question of race. And they are doing it quietly through a whisper campaign, and then often it gets into the public domain where they do it overtly, unashamedly. And we have been very clear that this is something that we will fight against. And people in Linden too are turned off by this vile propaganda. And they're disgusted by it. They're fed up with it. So we will once again do what we have done across this country, which is carry a single message in the People's Progressive Party, one of bringing people together and a message of progress for all Guyanese, regardless of their geography or race or religion or gender or age. We want all of our people to progress. It's a single message, and it will be done right across Guyana. We intend not to campaign on the incompetence and the failures of the last government, although we will point those out to people to ensure that there is an appropriate comparison and contrast between our policy making and policy implementation. We'll do that. But we are focused entirely on what we have done and what we'll do in the future. And so, because we have plans for that future, and we know what we're about. So it was a really interesting discussion I had with people from Region 10. And I was there largely to meet with various groups, but not just to meet with contractors, as some people believe. And we're not embarrassed about meeting with contractors, and we're not embarrassed about talking about what we have done for people. It's not social bribery, because what we have done in Linden now, as we approach the elections, we have done in almost all of the previous years since we've been in our office. Last year, the road program in Linden for small contractors, we had over 500 contractors in that region, maybe close to 600, and they implemented a program of about $7 billion. And this year, it's about $10 billion with maybe 700 contractors. Small contractors who never existed in 2020, and who are all from Region 10. So those people under APNU would have never gotten any work, and they're there now. And I saw among the contractors people who were openly critical of the People's Progressive Party, who in their own government would have never gotten a contract. And we're not doing a favor for the people there. We've just changed the system to empower small people and to give them an opportunity to implement programs that hitherto would have been done by a single individual. And that's why we changed the system where contracts below $15 million for the road program are allocated on the basis of rates and not through a bidding system. Because if we had continued with the bidding system, just a few people would have won all the bids. And we also changed the policy where we say that projects done in a particular region must be implemented by people from that region. And because of that, in Berbice, in Region 6, we have had hundreds, maybe 600-700 contractors now in Region 6 who are doing work, hundreds of contractors in Region 5, Region 2, Region 4, all across the country. They've been getting work. It's not unique to Linden. It's bringing benefits to people all around the country. And because we've been inclusive, because we've been empowering, we have been able to implement a massive program that would not have been implemented otherwise right across Guyana, to the extent where we have practically completed most community roads in the coastal Guyana. And because of that success, we now have to think about, in the next term in office, how we will continue to empower people, small contractors, medium-scale contractors, by developing a public works program that will be beneficial to the people of Guyana, that would allow us to extend these opportunities. And that's why we've selected, given the challenges of Guyana, we're below sea level, and because of climate change, we need better drainage in communities. We've selected the building of drains, concrete drains in communities, as a major area for massive infrastructural work in the next government, so that if the roads are completed in the communities, the drains are completed, we'd have better drained communities. We are now building out all the recreational facilities in all the villages and wards in the city, and other towns will be upgraded with lights, etc. So you have, and we plan to put cameras along the security cameras, not along the coast alone or the main corridors, but within the communities themselves. So climate resilient communities, communities with recreational facility, with good roads, with proper drainage, better garbage collection facilities. All of these are part of the plan for the next term. And it would create many opportunities for people who are working, small contractors, but also large ones. And so I was in Linden to talk about that, about their aspect, but this has been done right across Guyana. It's not only in Region 10. They were upset about it. So I saw the regional chairman and the others saying, oh, they had this in mind. They were planning to do it. They never did it in 5 years. They were planning to do these things. So I drove up on the Linden-Soestdijk Highway, which is being paved, and they were planning to do that. They never got around to it. They did some study that the road needs to be paved. You don't need a study because the road was falling apart. You needed to get it done, which is what we've done. And it's under construction now. The entire stretch of the road, 161 million US dollars, that when completed would make the journey down from Linden to the Soesdijk junction an easy commute. And that's under construction. And they also had in mind to do the 4-lane bridge that is under construction across the river in Linden. They had a lot of things in mind. Nothing ever happened. So I saw the bitterness, the sourness, and the resort to the only thing they know, which is racism. The only thing they know, which is racism. Because they can't compete on ideas, they can't compete on projects, they can't compete on inclusion. Inclusion. And you look at the audience, the people who went there, and you would see it, people of every race. And also mainly Afro-Guyanese and mixed, people of mixed descent, reflecting the demographics of that region. So that is how we work. They were sour, they were bitter about it, they didn't say anything much, but that's $10 billion in the pockets of the people of that region. That in a single year, only for under one initiative under this government. And as I said before, this is not because it's election year. This has happened in previous years too. So that is the difference there. After I met with the contractors, I also had the opportunity to meet with over 1,000 young people representing the demographics of the region again. And they were not bullied to come there. They came, as you saw, on their own volition. And I had not completed that area because, you know, I've gone across the country meeting young people as General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party. As a result of that, and you've seen the images in almost all the regions of Guyana, we had anticipated we would create a 5,000 strong progressive youth organization, which is the youth arm of our party. From those engagements, our numbers soared to 15,000 young people in the youth arm of the party, representing every race of Guyana. 15,000 young people are part of the youth arm of the party. And so I just had to meet with people, the young people in Linden. Many of them said, but you didn't come here as yet. So I took the opportunity being there to also engage young people. And it wasn't about promises. We didn't promise anyone anything. I just spoke of how young people are central to the People's Progressive Party's vision for Guyana. And I made the point that historically and in some political parties, people think that the youth policy has to do with only sports and culture. So if you want to talk to young people, you just talk to them about the cricket ground or the football ground that you're fixing and how many football you can give them. For us, it's very different. We believe young people are a part of the entire vision for the country because they have interest in education, they have interest in healthcare, they want to own their own home, they want to get a good paying job, they want to have recreational time to travel, they want to live in secure homes. So the entire gamut of policies are young people's issues too. And that's why we don't pigeonhole young people into the corner, just in sports. So I spoke to them about our vision for young people, and I related it back to the experience of young people in our party. We don't do it as window dressing like some political parties. Some don't even do the window dressing, like the last government was, as I said before, a gerontocracy, like only old people could have made it into the government. But some don't even do it as window dressing. But young people are actually genuinely integrated into the development of our party, the leadership of our party, and in government. I recall my own experience. In my 20s, I became a minister. By 35, I was president. Irfan Ali, the same thing. By 40, 41, he is president of Guyana. And if you look at the cabinet, throughout, we had a ton of young people in the cabinet. Throughout, when I was president, 70% of the cabinet were in their 20s, 30s, and early 40s. So that was it. The permanent secretaries became younger too. It was a time when you had to be 50 to become a permanent secretary. We had permanent secretaries who were in their 20s and early 30s. And so that is how we saw young people. So my entire message to the young people is, if you have not studied as yet, or are not studying, I expect by the time I come back next year, one of you would have applied for, and it's in one of the programs that we are now funding. Because last year alone, in the 5 years, we have paid for 82,000 persons to study. Through the GOLD program, through WIN, through BIT, and through the University of Guyana, which is free now. We've wrote off all of the debts from the students. So I expect by next year, and that's a message to the young people of Region 10, that's our message to young Afro-Guyanese, Indo-Guyanese, young Amerindians, people of mixed descent. Study. We want you to study. We don't pay you to go down and run down any street. We want you to study. We want you to, that's the first thing. We want you to apply for a house lot. Once you're of the appropriate age, I said to them, apply for a house lot. On the APNU, I talk about 10. Not a single house lot was given out in Region 10. Not a single one. Only a few people, like Amanza Walton and our 2 family members got the big plots of land, and Lowenfield and the others. I've mentioned this before. I said to them, apply for a plot of land because we want you to own things. I explained to them where the jobs will come from in the future. The sectors in which thousands of new jobs will be created. I said to them, many of you will need to start new businesses, small business. Not everyone can be a contractor. Some will have opportunities there. So you're going to get the support of the government to start a small business, and we're setting up a development bank that will help finance these businesses through zero interest loans. I talked to them about recreation, that sort of thing. That was my message to the young people. Not about, making them victims. That's what APNU talks about. Oh, you're discriminated against, you can't get this, etc. I wanted an entirely positive core of young people focused on the future of the country. And so, contrast the message with every other political party and the groups that we're meeting. When we meet people, young people of every race, we talk to them about progress and how they're going to be involved in the future of this country. We don't talk to them about use young people only for when elections come around. That's what APNU was good at. I recall talking to all the young people, or a lot of them from 2015 to 2020, who'd campaigned for APNU in the 2015 era. They were just thrown aside. And they're engaged now in a healthy dose of window dressing, and I'll come to that in a minute. But really, no guarantee. It's not organic. It's not integrated into the philosophy of the political parties, like how it's integrated into ours, the role of young people. So it was an entirely pleasing experience, and it shows the reach of our party too. I met with our party groups there. They're raring to go, the activists, and they're working on the campaign, and they're going to carry positive messages. We're not going to be competing with APNU on racism. Let's leave them, APNU and AFC, to wallow in that. We're going to be carrying our activists in Linden and everywhere in the country. We'll be talking about going house to house in this country, talking about trust, that we have kept faith with the people. We kept our promise to them, and we have crafted the plans that they are part of, that their future is linked to our planning for Guyana. I also, during the week, a number of people come into Freedom House, like lots and lots of people for all sorts of issues. So during the week, I also met young people, young professionals from the hinterland, from Region 10. They came to Freedom House, and they're all supporting the party. They came unsolicited as groups, and they said to me, none of the groups I met this week, we organized. They just got together themselves and said, how can we help in the campaign? How can we spread the message? Which is a very, very heartening thing for me, as General Secretary of the party. People walking off the road in groups, and people of every race, as you saw from the images, and saying, we want to help with the campaign. Some parties are hunting people down. They have to get them to give them some money to sign on to their list. In our case, people are walking off the road because they've seen the plans for the future, and they know they can trust us to implement those plans. So we will continue to speak about the future of the country. Young people, I wanted to address that. I'm not going to go into an entire discussion on young people, just to say that they're excited to be part of this shared vision for our country. I wanted, in keeping with the positive theme, I wanted just to address a couple of issues. Because if you look at the media, they're focused, every week you have a kind of nitpicking. And the nitpicking is just to make it seem as though the government has no accomplishment in particular areas. So I've seen this in this week, because they're finding it hard to sustain that because it has no resonance on the ground. This week it was about food security, the 25 by 2025 CARICOM target, and the president's statement or speech at the Enmore Martyrs activity at Enmore about how Gaisuco fits into a vision for a diversified economy. So you had a healthy dose of skepticism and mischaracterization, or we want to know the numbers, how you're achieving 25 by 2025. And if you look at the 2025, so let me address a few issues. 25 by 2025, this was the CARICOM leaders got together and they said, we're setting an aspirational goal. The food import bill in the region is skyrocketing, and and we need to do something about this. And therefore, let's have an enhanced focus on agriculture to see if we can supply more food to ourselves as part of the food security agenda. When this was launched here in Guyana and the heads made their speeches, the president pointed out, and I spoke in the afternoon of that very day, to a technical group of people at the convention center. And I said, for us to achieve this, we will need about $7 billion of investment in the 3 or 4 remaining years, the 3 years, to achieve that target. And it has to be done across the region. I lamented the fact that in most of the countries of the region, that agriculture did not feature in their budgets in a major way. That there was no major incentive scheme for agriculture. So we looked at the region and we examined the incentive regime for tourism or the financial sector or other services. And there were very lucrative incentive regimes, but very little for agricultural investment. There was very little budgetary support for agriculture. And so we argued that the countries had to have a rethink of their budgets and also their incentive regime. And then we may witness a change in the region. We have not seen a major shift in that pattern across the region. In Guyana's case, on the other hand, we had always been a net food exporter. Our food exports were higher than our imports traditionally. And yet we have continued to, and there's always been a heavy investment in the things necessary for agriculture, farm to market roads, drainage and irrigation, which are the lifeblood of the agricultural sector. In the APNU period, that plummeted. We also had a good incentive regime for agriculture. So if you brought in a tractor, a trailer, a plow, harrow, there was zero VAT. APNU put the VAT on that. Pesticides, fertilizer, zero rated. The APNU put the VAT on that. The drainage and irrigation charges, and like Maikoni area, the Region 5 was about $3,500 per year, per acre, land and water charges. APNU took it to $15,000. So in that period, there was a disincentive to get into agriculture. We've reversed most of those things consistent with the promises we made in 2020. And we resume the investment in drainage and irrigation. We've seen a supply response. the last crop, we produced the most rice than we have ever done in a single crop in the country. We've put in new varieties, etc. And we have laid out a plan for the growth of agriculture. So the Minister of Agriculture released to the public or to the media houses yesterday a comprehensive document outlining the achievements in agriculture. I haven't seen it carried in the newspapers. The same ones that questioned food security and us achieving, higher production responses. They didn't carry the response from the Ministry of Agriculture. So they focus on the president and the speech he made in Enmore. And what the president said is that Gaisuco can be a hub for rural development. That we plan to focus on crop diversification as a country, skills diversification, and income diversification, which have all been laid out in our plans. What are the crop diversifications that we've been talking about? They're already the production of roses for export, turmeric, nutmeg, coffee, cocoa, all of these things are already being expanded. Shrimp, ginger, coconuts, we brought in 102,000 dwarf nuts from Brazil to share out the plants here. Onion, corn, soya, cassava, a whole range of things. Every one of those, last year we produced 55 million pounds of cassava. In region 2, in region 3, it went from practically small numbers to 22 million pounds. We're now putting in a cassava mill in region 2. Every one of these areas, I can give you output figures for, which has been given by the Ministry of Agriculture. I didn't even deal with livestock diversification as yet. I just deal with sectors. Shrimp production, all of that. And so, in every one of these sectors, we are going to see more people employed. We're going to see more people earning income from these sectors. We're either going to replace an import or develop an export crop, one of these, because the roses are going to be done for export. The turmeric and nutmeg and coffee and cocoa can all be exported. The shrimp, the coconut for export. The onion is a replacement for the import. All of that we can do. The hemp production that we are planning to, we put in place the infrastructure will be for export. They're looking at doing cigars in a small scale that will be for export. A whole range of ideas for diversification. We don't enumerate all of these things, and often at a press conference of this nature, I don't want to do that because they're well laid out. Every single one of these sectors is laid out. So it's diversification, including using Gaisuco's land. So, for example, Gaisuco has 26,000 acres at Skeldon, where that APNU closed. We're looking to put some of it into hemp, in smaller plots, maybe 2,000 acres into hemp, because we've said that hemp will only be produced in 2 regions, regions 10 and 2. Those are the 2 regions we have said we're do hemp. We passed the law, we set up the board, and it will be done on small scale. So we're thinking about taking 2,000 of the 26,000 acres at Skeldon and giving it to 1,000 farmers, 2 acres each, that were laid off by Gaisuko or might be sugar workers now to produce the hemp. Then the factory can buy it from them. Similarly, in Region 10, we want to do that on a small scale. We have identified another 35,000 acres of land that are privately owned or owned by true co-ops in the same Skeldon area. Combined, that's a large amount. That's over 60,000 acres of land we're talking about in these, to bring into an agro-industrial complex in just the Skeldon area, Crabwood Creek area. We're now building a road from Crabwood Creek to Oriala. We started a road. That will open up tens of thousands more of acres of land along that corridor into production, agricultural production for our country for export. So in 2 areas in Berbice, we're building 2 canals that will go directly, I think in the Manchester area and 52 area, we're building canals that will go take the water directly into the Atlantic, what we call the Hope Light Canal. We'd open up another 55,000 acres of land for cultivation there. Just think about that one region. That's 35 there. And in Region 5, we're now building the canals there that will open up another 55,000 acres of land, 5,000 in Essequibo. All of this is part of our plan for agricultural diversification, more land to small people, for livestock and all of the crops we're talking about. In the hinterland regions, we're supplying tens of thousands of planting material now. We have the tissue culture lab for the cocoa and the coffee and the turmeric and the ginger, which will come from these areas. That's what the president was talking about. Gaisuko fitting into this master plan that will take some of the labor now that we have currently employed in Gaisuko and the workers there and create new opportunities for them. And that was the idea. So at Enmore, where the factory was closed, we're spending about $6 billion now at the back of Fowles developing an industrial estate that would employ 4,000 people. And it's already near completed, and a massive road, heavy-duty road, is being built to that site for factories there. So people were displaced from the sugar industry in Enmore, and along the East Coast, they can find work there. But it would not only be those people, because it's close to Annandale, Buxton, all of these areas. People will find employment opportunities in that area. That's being done now as part of our diversification plan. And so that would not only diversify income, the crops, but also income. So people have diverse sources of income, making us much more stable. It would lend to food security. We're already the only country in the world. You saw the BBC article. The only country in the world, it says here, I have it here, only one country in the world produces all the food it needs, study finds. That across all 7 categories of food that they identified, we're self-sufficient. Of course, our consumption pattern is changing now. When countries get wealthier, I pointed out that the disposable income alone from the public sector is that is the increase in wages and salaries per year is 500 million US. People are saving more. They want to consume different things too. So our food import bill will go up, but our production response is increasing too. Because people want, better steak cuts. They want all kinds of fancy food now. And I'm not talking about, like rich people alone. Everybody wants like different kinds of food. It puts a pressure on your food import bill. But on the production side, we see massive, massive growth and then encouragement there. So, so that's what we were talking about. And the skills diversification he was talking about. So what kind of skills you need for agriculture now? You don't need the traditional skills. You need some of that. But the guys now, everything is being mechanized. So we need to train people to manage, and maintain the equipment that they would be working on. We have the tissue culture lab now, so we will be we'll be producing planting material at large scale, but you need scientists to work in the labs. I spoke a couple of weeks ago about drones being used in say the broadcasting of pesticides and possibly fertilizer in the future, particularly if you have liquid fertilizer. I spoke about a whole range of these things. So the skill type, what we have to train our young people in, would be very different now. It's not the traditional type of agriculture, marketing and product development. And so that's what we were talking about. But they gone into, they're complaining about the president's speech at Gaisuko, at the Enmore, without understanding the context. And in the next term, we made it clear that in every region, so it's not just production, we have to have the innovation hub. And so every region will have its own innovation hub. It will have its own diversification support technical center. And then so the innovation, the diversification support, so that means processing of the agricultural produce, and you getting the technical help for that. And then overall, we'd have the development bank to make zero interest loans to those ventures. So it supports diversification fully. They get the support right from planting material to the technical skills. We'd support people studying in the different subject areas. We'll create the incentive regime for small businesses in agriculture and every other sector, but I'm speaking of agriculture here today. We'd provide more lands for people to conduct their business in. We'll have the support centers for diversification and processing. And we will also have the innovation hubs, and then we'll have the financing mechanism, which is zero interest loan. It's all well thought out, well laid out. We have been talking about this for a very, very long time. The president mentioned co-invest. In this year's budget, we have $1.2 billion for co-investing. We're already co-investing in ventures, building factory shells and production shells for people who are going to be doing this. So if you're a young person and you come up with a good project, we will now, and it would help create linkages with the community. We could very well invest not as part of a loan, zero interest loan, but a direct grant to the project by building the factory shell. We're like what we're doing in the cassava mill in Region 3 and many other places around the country now, where we are co-investing to give the business a boost. And so if you look at this, I'm already speaking very long on it, and I don't want to continue too much on this. I hope that you will pay attention to some of the things that the ministry put out. We are now, for example, you saw a loan, 18 million from the CDF, Caribbean Development Fund, that will support agriculture, support farmers. In Letem, we already spoke about this municipal airport, a massive municipal airport to support food processing, using some raw material from Brazil to fly into region, the CARICOM region, to meet that demand there, so that they can cut costs too, but also a big market for us. It's exciting. It's an exciting period for agriculture. And then Gaisuko, but they all focus in on sugar workers. You know, somehow the president said sugar workers must, because they always like to create this fiction that this sugar industry has become a burden to Guyana. When we were in opposition, we said to them, look at the multidimensional nature of the sugar industry. And that's why they did a financial feasibility study for Gaisuko and then came up with, we need to close all these estates. And by now, all of the estates would have been closed, not the ones that they closed alone. So Albion would have gone, Blaemont would have been terminated too. All of these would have been by now closed, had APNU stayed in power. So we made it clear that you have to do an economic feasibility, not a financial feasibility, because that's when you see the linkages that Gaisuko continues to have in many of these communities. And that's what the president pointed out, which is a point I think that was over the head of people like Ram Jatan and the others when they were pushing in a doctrinaire way, an unthinking way, to close the sugar estates because they think they were harming the PPP support base. Look at the contrast with land too. Gaisuko lands, they should be ashamed to talk even about anything in Gaisuko. Gaisuko's land now, which APNU gave away at Wales, all the Gaisuko lands. I think they sold the estate houses. You should check who they sold it to. And all the land at Wales, they gave away to a few individuals, most of them associated with the PNC. We now have to take those lands back to build houses for people, house lots, which we're doing, or else we wouldn't have been able to fulfill our plan to give, which is to give everyone who needs a home, every guy needs a house lot. We're doing 14,000 house lots on lands there at Wales now. If we didn't take that back, we wouldn't have had land, because when you think about beyond high flood, most of those lands are private. Coming back this way too, most of it is private. So in Region 3, we'd had very, very limited amount of land if we didn't take that back. So APNU took the land, Gaisuko land, gave it away to a few people. We had to take back Gaisuko's land to help now provide housing for our people. They should just go quiet on these matters, but you would see no doubt that they will be talking about this again. So I wanted to deal with this food security matter. Now, today, I'm going to have a relatively short press conference today. I'm not done as yet, Marcel, so sit down. So in the last few days, we've seen a flurry of activities in relation to coalitions. And I've asked my staff to just put down on one sheet of paper some of the headlines for me for the past month or two. And it makes very interesting reading every day. Just look at the headlines across newspapers and look at the substance of what has been said by different parties. And you tell me if you could ever trust people who lie on each other routinely. We can't get clear answers until now from either side, APNU or the AFC, as to what took place in the discussions. Every day you have a changing narrative about who said what. If you can't get that straight, and you were supposed to be friends and partners, you just came out of a government that you both shared together, of course with disastrous consequences for our country when they tried to rig the elections together. You had a brotherhood in trying to rig the elections. You had a brotherhood in the disastrous policies of taking away the children grant, etc. At least get your story straight. And until now, every day, as of today, we can't know what took place. Everyone has a different version of what took place in the talks and who said what. And then they rebut each other openly all the time. As of today, this morning, I saw, some even, and they have like divorce final, and then 2 days later they're trying to make up again back. So imagine someone saying, AFC told APNU a Norton-led coalition wouldn't have national appeal and likability for victory. 14th of June 2025, Kaichor News. And they're still trying to join this coalition with Norton as the presidential candidate. AFC. They just told APNU this, AFC. A Norton-led coalition wouldn't have national appeal and likability for victory. You can't win the elections with Norton there. He's not liked by anyone and has no national appeal as the presidential candidate. Yet AFC is busy now trying to join the coalition with Norton as the presidential candidate, a man who they themselves said can't secure victory for the coalition if he leads it. That's Jureta Finance dismisses possible PM offer from PNCR. 27th of April 2025. I see Terence Campbell, Chicken Man, has weighed in now. I promise AFC to break the hand of Aubrey Norton, get them a 65-35 formula. He said they walked away from it. It's like really interesting reading for me. But behind all the clownishness and this confusion is a tragedy, and people have to think through it. So it reinforces our point that all along they were only negotiating about positions. Even Granger, from his sojourn somewhere on the East Bank, has come out and said it shouldn't be about what positions you get. It should be about a program, something that we have spoken about, a joint program. They have not even come up with the program as yet, and I'll deal with that in a moment. So what we've seen now with the recent configurations in the last couple of days is a recycling of the same people within the same coalition. There just seems to be switching sides. So it's recycled people within themselves. When you are a political party, you look for momentum and growth. You want to bring people to you who are not part of your camp. If you are using people who are traditionally part of your camp to move to another part of your camp, then you're not really focusing on addition. You're just, like stirring the same pot. You have to, in politics, it's about bringing people to your vision. It's about convincing people that your vision and your plans for the future of the country and for their lives will be of benefit to them. That is what we are focused on. And although you have seen, last week I dealt with this, some more high-profile people coming to us from that camp, there are hundreds, thousands of people, ordinary people who voted for ACNU in the past, who have come to the PPP's vision of Guyana, and we welcome them. They are convinced that we are working in the best interest of the country and them and their families. And that's why we've shown this by results, local government results. So they are not making any difference, any configuration that they come up with. And desperation might force them together. They will give up on principles, they would give up on their own position, which says Norton can be the candidate because he'd lose the elections, but AFC will go into the coalition if offered a space, knowing that they themselves said that. So they can put together any configuration. We are ready in the PPP, not because of arrogance, but because people have seen them and discarded them. It's the same Juretta Finance, it's the same Sherrod Duncan, who are part of the last government, the same Amanza Walton, the same Nigel Hughes, and all of the others. It's the same group. They're just, going to create a new party, switching sides every day within their own camp. And their camp is a camp that delivered 5 years of disastrous performance for the country. So it's not anything that we are too worried about. And I see people urging them to come together again. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. Desperation will force them together. The second thing is leadership. We are contesting the polls to determine a political party that will lead the country for 5 years. And people have to examine the candidates using some metrics. So experience, competence, trustworthiness, people who would actually say something and then do it. So let's talk about leadership and the qualities of the leadership. We have Irfan Ali as a presidential candidate. Irfan Ali spent a number of years in the cabinet before he became president. He had several portfolios, housing, in a period when we had one of the largest expansion in the housing program. He was Minister of Tourism at the same time, and water, the water sector. He also covered housing and water. So he was in the cabinet for several years, listened to the conversations. was involved in the discussions on all sorts of issues, from national security to everything else, because by virtue of your presence in the cabinet. He has had 5 years as president. Globally, he's already known. He has represented us well on every matter, whether the United Nations or a border issue with Venezuela. He's respected around the world. I can speak at length about that issue. Mark Phillips had a large number of years in public service. He commanded thousands of troops as head of the army. He's been prime minister for 5 years with substantive portfolios. That's the experience Mark Phillips has. He's well respected. So we have now Mr. Norton. Norton, in the last government, which was the pinnacle of his government position, was some advisor on empowerment. I don't think he even had an office under the Granger administration. He used to be seen around different places, but I don't think he even had a permanent office. Never managed any large-scale tasks. Never had to implement anything. As I said before, he's a little leaguer, and also he operated around the periphery of the power structures, both at the party level and at the government level. No experience whatsoever. Director of Finance, now the prime ministerial candidate, is around the same thing. They checked her LinkedIn today. My staff, I asked, check. She was confidential secretary to the prime minister up to 2020, and then a member of parliament from 2020 to now. No management skill, no, and I'm not disparaging here, because we're in politics, we're looking at things in a hard-nosed way. That's the leadership of their ticket now. 2 persons who are charlatans, novices, who have never really negotiated alone. They have never engaged in politics at even a major level. Look at the support team that they have. It's Paul and the others. Look at Irfan's support team, his ministers and everybody else, with years of technical and political experience. Amanza Walton, she heads a party. Amanza Walton was a staff at the Civil Aviation Authority before 2020. Ed Jill said when she was terminated, she started working there in 2013 under President Ramatara. She had 25 violations in her the human resources file. 25, you check the old story. So Google it today and you will see that. I think it was in September of 2020. And check the track record there. And since then, Member of Parliament, who believes that Indo-Guyanese are mentally lazy. She said that openly. I'm not going to say what she called Afro-Guyanese, because I saw the story in Guyana Standard. You can read it yourself, what she's been calling Afro-Guyanese. But That's her view. No experience whatsoever. The ANOG, if they even exist, they're hanging around the place. The guy there contested in New Amsterdam in his own constituency, where he is born, the head of ANOG, and got 3 votes. In New Amsterdam, in a constituency in which you are born, and got 3 votes. In the local government elections, VPAC, you know that, outside of the fuel trouble that he had in the last government, you check the Baltimore Sun article, and you will see his track record. If you haven't seen it before, read about it, where he comes from. And then you have Nigel Hughes, now who has become like pleader-in-chief. I see that, just pleading for a position in the coalition. I see a headline somewhere, I think it was Newsroom, from strong negotiator to pleading for a position on the ticket. That's it. He has nothing. And Azruddin Mohammed, he has competency in smuggling gold and submitting false invoices. What other competency? No policy. So you just contrast that and think about entrusting the future of Guyana this time in the hands of that group versus Irfan Ali, Mark Phillips ticket, supported by a party that has kept its promise to the people, always kept its promise to the people, a political party. Think about it for yourselves. That is it. So they will come together in every configuration, but it doesn't change that. What I just explained to you does not change, no competence. And so they have not even, some of them, decided what their platform will be for the elections. We're like just over 2 months away, but they haven't thought about their ideas as yet, what they want to do for the country. Because for them, they have no intention of doing anything. So, to give you an idea of how they prepare their program for Guyana, the App News said Amanza Walton was asked to prepare a brief for the manifesto, and every shadow minister in the parliament was asked to prepare their section of the manifesto for the future. If you don't have centralized direction and leadership in a manifesto preparation, if you don't see all the moving parts and be able to cost them and then see whether they're sustainable or not, your promises become disjointed. If you have 10 different people producing a manifesto, or 20 in their case, it's disjointed. But they pay no serious attention to this, because for them it's just a promise for the election. They have nothing. So they don't plan to implement it, so they can say anything. We can't do that, because we know we're winning the elections and we know we'd have to fulfill the promises. So we study things carefully before we do it. And we didn't wait like in 2020. We didn't wait until 3 months before the elections to talk about what we will do. From day one, in Parliament, when they increased the taxes, we said when we return to office, 3 years before the elections, we said we're going to change all of these back. When they increased, like on 1 year, maybe not 600, maybe about 60, 70 new fees and taxes. I stood up there and said, when we return to office, that was 3 years before the elections, all of these things would be reversed. Now they're busy telling you what they plan to do. Some haven't even worked that out as yet. They got their ducks lined up in row. I heard a man just said she got her ducks lined up. This is not about ducks. This is not about ducks. So that is how they treat manifesto preparation, because they have nothing. I heard the sanctioned individual, he got a man who called us and said, I'm preparing the manifesto for him. You all want to see it? He said, no, we don't want to see your manifesto. Keep it. Keep it. He doesn't even, he just farmed it out. Hire somebody to do it, because they have no plan to implement it. You think anything like that could go past the PPP? Everything that comes up here, we rigorously scrutinize. All the ideas that came in, we're going to have a public consultation. We'll tell people why we're doing certain things, how much money we will put into the development fund, all of that in our manifesto. Or how much we're going to spend on education, and where in the future. And all of this, healthcare, what our plans are for healthcare, in great detail. So it, apart from no skill or competency, they're not trustworthy because they plan not to implement anything, and they're not, this feeble attempt to come up with a program that they would call manifesto has been really that, not just feeble, but dishonest. It's dishonest. So I see AFC promises deep water port now. You know, we've been talking about this. A couple of weeks ago, APNU promised free university education. They don't even read what they produce and put out. And if you want evidence of that they don't even read what they get, they just put it up. Look at this, Norton. Putting people first, a nice picture of Norton, photoshopped nicely, looks very good here. And not that he doesn't look any good normally, he's my friend, so I have to, although he will deny that. So he will, look at this. Norton, they put out something and more. So it goes, Guyana rent to own housing plan will guarantee that your home ownership dreams come true. Every Guyanese will have the opportunity to move from renting to owning their own home. Remember, he started off by support to rent, and we criticize him now, you're going to own. And more, the plan includes important training programs to create jobs for young people. And then in bracket, do you want to add seniors also? In bracket. It's propaganda, so no one feels left out. That's an AI prompt. Artificial intelligence prompt. They generate these things. I hope you know, but Nigel Lewis and the others, they feed our program into AI, all of our plans, and guess what they say? Rewrite it. So you get it the same thing, but rewritten to look different. That's what they're doing now. We have evidence of this. They just feed the PPP's plan into the AI and say rewrite. So lazy, but they have no intention. It sounds erudite. When AI puts it together, it sounds smart, etc. I'm sure if you have a debate, half of them wouldn't know what they actually promise. You would not have that. So this is no experience, no leadership, untrustworthy, can't even get it right around their plans. Can't even get it right about their plans for the future. Who will pay attention to anything they put out seriously? Who will pay attention to this? So let me share my thoughts now on what has happened recently in the afternoon. Now, you have in the opposition camp, what you see playing out is grudge politics, greed politics. Pure and simple, that's it. So, Director of Finance and Sherrod Duncan lost the leadership of the leadership contest in their party. They held a grudge. The last few months, they've been running down the other members of the AFC, the Nigel Hughes faction in the AFC. They're claiming he doesn't do any work, he's lazy, they have to do the work, that faction is very lazy, they're dictatorial and useless and exclude everyone. And can't even guarantee a position for themselves. That is for the leadership in the APNU coalition. Or the APNU AFC in the coalition, because they're not part of the coalition. So these two have felt, and maybe the other one too. I don't remember his name, some Deonarine or something. I can't remember his name. So they know that the AFC will probably have maybe minimal amount of seats, may not even make it far in the elections. That APNU at least will have a few seats. So they're out of grudge politics and greed politics. They have decided to switch camp because to try to secure themselves and their members of parliament position. That is played out there. We've seen the same thing with Amanza Walton. So from all that we have picked up with Amanza Walton, in her press conference, I just looked at some key words she said. That there's no role, she was not offered any role in policy making or leadership. That's from our press conference. I was not offered a defined position, and I reject the notion that you must wait your turn. So again, consistent with what's been coming out from their camp, wanted to be anointed, not to struggle for party and principle or anything. It's how she personally would come out. Would I be offered this job, the prime ministerial job or whatever else? She wanted a defined position and a guarantee into parliament. So that mattered more than all the so-called principle and values that she speaks of. So again, the greed politics and grudge politics left. And as someone pointed out, she said she just met last week with the leadership of the PNC, but said she's been planning her political party for a long time before. So it tells you again of the duplicity. All of this talk about of principle and values and the crocodile tears that they shed. That's why I said, does she still believe that Indo-Guyanese are mentally lazy? You have to answer that. Does she still believe that Indo-Guyanese are mentally lazy? And she says, I will work with others based on values and principles, and shed crocodile tears over the women and children are being affected now. They can't, under this big bad PPP government, they can't get help. But she was part of the coalition when they took away the money from the children. And she was earning, you check that article, $1.2 million per month and getting allowances plus getting paid as a head of a project unit, a ton of things. Read the article. And where was this concern about women and children and everything in the past when they were in government? And if you have such high values and principles, how come she didn't rule out siding or with the Mohammeds, as the Guyana Standard story outlined? So she said, I'm not ruling out collating with the Mohammeds. Now, Mohammeds have been sanctioned by the United States Treasury Department for well, that was the Reuters article, but the gold smuggling. He's been accused of evading $50 million of taxes. The US said they have a mountain load of evidence. He produced false invoice. He's been accused by Reuters of drug trafficking and laundering money for Russian mafia. Where are your values and principles now? But you can't rule out siding with the Mohammeds. It's all a show. And a month ago almost, her brother posted she'd make a great prime ministerial candidate for the Mohammeds. I have a post like that. So I'm sure there have been behind the scenes discussion on all of these matters. So this seemed to have been set up. And people form their own parties, so if they become part of a coalition, I didn't join him, I just had my own party in the coalition. That is where I think that's headed. So I don't put too much, this is all noise. I don't put too much emphasis on what's happening there. Director of Finance and the others, she went to APNU, and that's a great achievement for them. Now, in APNU itself, people are saying, how come she is just out of the blue come to us, the APNU supporters, including, I'm sure, my Paul, who thought he was getting it. He was actually, from what I heard, telling people, he probably very upset about this. So they have a lot of discussions internally for that, and because I don't think it was discussed at the leadership of the party. Now, Nigel Hughes, people are criticizing Nigel Hughes, but I think I have to take his side this week. So Nigel Hughes is justifiably worried. Everyone been talking about the greed, and they are greedy, both sides. They're only negotiating for positions. But the biggest issue is not the 65, 35, or 30, and whatever else they've been saying. All these confusing configurations of what they want, positions. They're not going to win the elections, it wouldn't matter. So it is one issue, which is who becomes the representative of the list. And Norton is saying, I'm a candidate and I'm going to be the representative of the list, or we will determine that. So the AFC knows that after the elections, if they get combined, even if they're together and they get 20 seats or 25 seats, Norton will decide. Nigel Hughes will have to walk over with cap in hand to Norton and beg for positions in the parliament. And knowing Norton may not want to give them. And so that is what I think that Sherrod Duncan and Director of Finance recognize, that with Norton as the representative of the list, the AFC may not get anything. And they may just decide, because right now the AFC, I don't know if they can run a campaign on their own, so they may just walk in and take whatever. We'll have Norton choose the representative of this, or be that himself, and etc. But they're worried about the Cummingsburg Accord. You remember the Cummingsburg Accord, where all these positions were promised to the AFC and they got nothing, and then the people who they put in became more APNU and more corrupt than APNU people, like the Cathyus and the others taking contract for herself. So that's where the big issue is. It's around the representative of the list. And so who determines of the seats they win, but they're going to lose the elections, of those who go into parliament. Something that Norton has been lamenting. He's saying, oh, Granger was controlling that all the time. So he's not going to give it up. If he gives it up, he's practically nothing. If he gives it to the AFC. And the AFC, without that, can secure a job for Nigel Lewis or any of his MPs, because there's great distrust among the two parties. They are, either way, I don't want to use the word, but it's a bad word, but they are in a serious trouble. So it's not like I wish them ill. It's just that they were complicit in all of the wickedness they did for 5 years. For 5 years, they're complicit, both AFC and APNU, the leadership. And I have no sympathy whatsoever for them, because they're just the same, they're cut from the same cloth. And all that you see here is power struggle. All that you see here is power struggle for positions. They know they're going to lose. In fact, AFC said, with Norton, we're going to lose, but we still want to go with Norton. With him, we'd lose. He has no likability, nothing. So that's where we are today. That's my own view on these matters. Thank you. Yes, Marcel.
Marcel Thomas, Starbuck News. First, as General Secretary, earlier you juxtaposed the PPP's leadership slate for the elections against the oppositions. That's to definitively say that PM Mark Phillips is going to be the prime ministerial candidate?
I told you where that's my personal position. But from my canvassing the leadership of the party, I know that it's a 99.9% certainty.
But the party still has to make the
Yes, the party
definitive.
will make the decision. But it's the very same people who I've already spoken to, the canvas, in the leadership of the party.
Okay, and back to your hat as VP now. I'm asking for an update on the status of the proposal from Car Powership to use the...
Okay, so right now, we are not going to conclude any arrangement with Car Power before the elections. As I said, last week I told you, we are not going to have any movement on the gas monetization project before the elections. And also their signing of the prospecting licenses for the oil and gas sector before the election. So let me add that to the two that I spoke of already. We're too close to the elections to do that. A good proposal came in from Car Power, which is that pending the completion of the gas to energy project, which is slated for mid next year, as PM said in Parliament, we can utilize the gas to generate power using a proposal that they have. So we have to, when we got the proposal, we were examining the technical feasibility, because if you generate 300 megawatts of power offshore on a barge using the gas that's already in the pipeline, basically, because it's completed, whether we can transmit and utilize all 300 megawatts at this stage, given the state of the transmission lines. That assessment is ongoing. Regardless of the outcome, we are not going to conclude any deal with Car Power, because the two barges plus our own program, because since those two barges came in from Car Power and have been supplying the grid, we've been able to now do a lot of maintenance on the old sets. And so we have adequate power for the near term until, at least until past the elections. We have adequate power way past the elections.
And also on the gas to energy and the 50% reduction, you had said that there was a possibility that government might not wait until the completion of the project, when it was expected to be done by the end of this year, that we could see there is a possibility we could see the 50%.
You could still see that, but frankly speaking, I don't think it should be an election issue, right? Because if we do it today, they would say, oh, we're only doing it for the elections. We are going to, this project is going to be completed next year. Before then, or at the completion point, the price of electricity in Guyana will be cut by 50%, and that's a promise we made. So let me leave it at that. It could happen before, but it's also, the outside date is the completion of the gas to energy project, which is slated for June next year.
Mr. Jagdeo and Shabral Damrawi. Sir, I have a follow-up on the question concerning the Car Power ship proposal. How is it envisaged that the gas will be transported to the power ships? And secondly, my substantive question, could you tell us whether there have been new contracts signed with the Cuban doctors who are currently working in Guyana?
Yeah, from what I gather, the PS has said to me that we're fully compliant now with the US requirements. So I don't know the details of it. I suspect you should. I hope you'd ask Frank Anthony the details, but yeah, I know this has been happening and has happened in some cases. And the next question is, how will the gas be transported? So this will be an entirely new ship that is dedicated to processing the gas to generate some liquids and to use the gas to generate about 300 megawatts of power. If you move to doing that, so it will be located closer to the pipeline, then you will decommission the two ships that we have, Barbies and Essequibo, should that come into being.
And at the policy level concerning the same Cuban doctors, the government of Guyana had to sever the current agreements with the Cuban government?
Well, I must confess, I'm not on a daily basis involved with this matter. So please ask Dr. Anthony. I just know that we're fully compliant. We've been told we're fully compliant with the the U.S. requirement and that the Cuban government understands this.
And lastly, follow up on the ship again. Would there be a cost saving if you were to go the route of the natural gas use? And
Yes,
what will that be?
Because to generate 300 megawatts of power per day, or right, we will need 300 megawatts of power. You have to, if you're using bunker C to generate 300 megawatts of power, it will be around $1 million per day. If you use your own gas and you don't have to buy bunker C, then you could save $365 million per year.
The rental of the
Yes,
ship.
but then you're still, I'm just saying this saving on fuel itself.
Yeah, I follow
only
that.
on fuel. Yeah.
I have 3 questions, and all are related to Annette Ferguson.
Annette Ferguson?
Yes.
Oh, don't waste my time with Annette. You're wasting my time. I don't pay attention, frankly speaking, to Annette Ferguson. I don't, please don't bring me Annette Ferguson with her thing, you know. She used to talk to? Uncle, what's it, the dead guy, who she didn't even know at the funeral? She probably, you forgot the last election, she was talking to Uncle John or something like that. She didn't even know which funeral she was at. And please, don't take me down the Annette Ferguson route. You got all, like everybody, next thing I got to answer to my Paul and fish fry and all of that sort of thing. Notice I don't, like the Mohammed, we got him on tape, the big, bad, wicked government. He managed to get a couple of words out. Big, bad, wicked government, the PPP sanctioned him. He telling the poor Amerindian community that we sanction him. Lying to people in these areas. I don't want to waste my time behind these people. They really don't. Annette Ferguson's biggest task is to get her party. What does she have to say about all that's going on? Annette Ferguson, when they threw her out of the office in, I think in South or West Romville, she fetched away her door, I think, that she had put on the office. When Norton threw her out, she fetched away her door. You don't please spare me the Annette Ferguson and Rufflets. I'm still trying to get serious things to answer to from their side, but they're not generating anything serious. They're just like this poppy show all week, you know. There are no musical chairs. So I think we might end early today here, like nothing. I'm sure the media enjoying this as much as I'm doing, right? And in what's going on, total confusion in the APNU AFC camp and the others. They have nothing really to offer. People really just, all right, they just want to get past the elections so we can stop hearing these silly things coming out from their quarters. Thank you.
Cordell Jones from Live Wire News. Beverly Alert would have just walked out of a meeting with GCOM citing some changes to form by GCOM. Do you think this is another tactic to, in the end, call or cry foul when the election results are called come September 1? AFC, yes.
So what GCOM has done, 1 whole month before the nomination date, GCOM said, to avoid fraud, the person who's signing your Bacchus form must know that they're signing a Bacchus form, not a blank fee. So every form has to say at the top, I'm knowingly supporting, I don't know the exact language, I'm knowingly supporting the list of candidates for the following political party. What's wrong with that? That's transparency. But Beverly Allard and AFC, they're just looking at all these things. They're just looking to read things from the opposition. They just want to cheat people to get them to the man walking, the vagrant walking down the street, you know, they catch him and get him to sign the form. Or somebody else. Oh, you're going to get 2 football, sign my form. Now you have to present to the backers, and what's wrong with that? All you have to do is to get for the regional list, 175 backers. For a party, any party can go and get that. PPP can pick that up in one day. One day we can go to any region of this country and get a list of 175 backers for the regional form. Or any party can do that. That's not a large number of people. If you claim you're going to win the national elections, how come you can't get 175 names to sign to your form 1 whole month ahead of nomination day? 30 days you have to do that. If you get 5 persons signing per day, you could probably get it done, right? No, maybe a little bit more. My maths is like that, 6. My maths is like up new maths there just now. So that's it. This is the same thing. Gripe about everything. Gripe about everything. Look at the AFC and the fraud that they were trying to commit in the local government election. And you know they went to the elections with people being unable to remove their names because the timeline was so short that even when we reported it to the police, you couldn't do anything much because the list would have been disqualified. And GCOM didn't want to do that. So you have a 3 days window to find all of those names. And what they're counting on is that people will not know. So GCOM don't publish the list of backers. So if they pick up anybody from the street and get them to sign on, for something, like they're offering them something, the people don't know that they're signing a backers form. They will never find that out because it's not published. So this is an attempt to really make the process more transparent. And they're already paying money to people. I know some political parties just doing this. It's down.
My second question, I've been trying to find out from the police, but are you aware if there's any new information or headway in the Fagundes case?
I don't know. I saw Critic made the headline yesterday on that case there. So I don't know. I don't follow up with the police investigation, but I hope we find out the truth. The president spoke of this some time ago, and he said that I think some new information had come to light, and I expect that they would do a professional job and explore this thoroughly, and at the appropriate time finalize the investigation. I don't follow up on that matter.
Dr. Jagdeo, Mikhail Rodriguez for Daybreak News. With just 3 months left, just under 3 months left for elections, the PPP seems to be in the same mode because nothing has changed much. PPP seem to have been in campaign mode for the last 5 years. There's confusion over in the opposition camp. But it's normal for elections for presidential candidates and the president and the incumbents and so on to have debates. Do you see any options for us to put together a viable debate, like a credible debate with anyone, with President Irfaan Ali?
I'm a practical person, so I'm convinced in the capability of President Ali that he would do extraordinarily well in any debate. He has the pulse of this country. He understands intimately all the programs that we are pursuing. He knows about the plans for the future. He's had vast international experience, unlike any of the other candidates. So I'm not worried about his performance. But if I were, as I said the last time, I were to advise him whether to participate or not, I would say no. Just imagine you have to debate with a Norton. So Norton will come and tell you about all the things. He will say, I'll give $400,000 cash grant every day, every day of the year. So President Ali might say 150,000. But that that will get done. Norton just says that for the debate. Norton will come and say the PPP rigged the elections, 2020 elections. How do you convince him? Up to now they're arguing in spite of all of the evidence to the contrary. He's in a cocoon. So how do you really get him to change his mind? The guy said he had the SOPs, but refused to give the SOPs. And Nigel Hughes would say the same thing. Nigel Hughes will come and say, I don't believe it's unethical or criminal for a minister to give, an APNU AFC minister to give herself contracts to our own company in our own ministry. Only if it happens in the PPP, it's unethical and criminal. What would Azruddin Mohammed, that would be an interesting one. That would be really an interesting one. If he were to show up, it would be like, he'd say, PPP sanction him. He's been persecuted. He would say, the Lamborghini costs $75,000, and they asked him about the invoice. A man bought it for $650, but sell it back to me for what, $75? When asked about the 10,000 kilograms of gold, whether he smuggled it, ask Jagdeo about that. That's why he wanted to ask me. He smuggled the 10,000 kilograms of gold in 5 years, and you must ask Jagdeo about it. That's what you'll get from him. How would Irfan Ali answer that? How would Irfan Ali deal with that sort of thing? Really, because this guy would lie at a public forum. He's been lying all the time. He said, he told one man, I paid $1 million for the Lamborghini, submitted an invoice for $75,000. The US government gave the invoice for $695,000. And he gets away with lying. And he goes in the little circles and say, the PPP sanctioned him. What really are we going to get debated? Or you want Director of Finance against Mark Phillips? What would be, it wouldn't be a serious thing. For me personally, I have no interest in it, because a debate is not about just saying things. It's about believability. It's about credibility. It's about fulfilling your promise. They have none of that. Anything they say, you can't believe it. They said it. It came from a more credible man than Norton, Granger. Granger is seen as credible, ex-army man, etc. And he didn't do it because it's a structure of the party. And given what they're arguing for is jobs for themselves now, they're not concerned about anything else. That should tell the people of this country where their focus is, where their head is. So when Norton says you can't eat infrastructure, so stop building roads or power plants or anything else, what are you going to say to them. Nigel Hughes will come and tell you he wants to renegotiate the Exxon deal now, but he's still on Exxon payroll. You're not making any headway. We're not into the show where this is about serious business. This is the future of our country and our people. It's about making sure they get higher paying jobs, they take care of their safety, healthcare, education opportunities, that all of our young people can map up a pathway to prosperity. That's it. It's about supporting farmers and the sugar workers and the miners and getting the people back in the bauxite industry, which we're thinking about how we can get the Ichuni-Kwakwani corridor back up and going. We've had some discussions recently about that. That's what we're about. Okay? Thank you.